Nice to have you around. This is a series of 3 talks I'll be doing for you. I've thought about 3 subjects that we're going to talk about. Today is going to be the initiation into running. So, you know, what do we have to look at, what do we have to watch out for, injuries, how to prevent injuries. And then we do a little bit of nutrition today. The second will be more of nutrition. We're going to go into precision nutrition, into metabolic typing, a lot of subjects regarding nutrition and also hydration. And the third talk will just be before the race, and it will be about the race itself. So how you're going to prepare for the race, how you're going to make that race a success. Of course, you're already doing a lot of work to make it a success, but we must make sure that the whole road towards the race, we will stay free of injury, we will have a good nutrition, lose weight, and that way we can make it a success. So why this talk today? What we're going to talk about? First, I want to talk about consciousness, because the utmost thing about training is when you're training, and you kind of do a lot of theory. So today we're going to talk a bit more about theory. Okay? We're going to talk, like I said, about injuries, about nutrition, about technique as well, because I think there were quite a bit of questions about technique. So the theory about running, it's not that hard, but most people do get injured, and that's what we want to prevent as a company. We want everybody that starts to be free of injury when we get to the finish line. Somebody can get ill, and you know there's a lot of other factors that can make it happen that you don't run the race, but not an injury. Okay. Also, the other thing is that when you're training and the trainer is talking to you, you often you're a bit tired. You're focusing on training. You're concentrated, and it doesn't really come in everything that the trainer says. And often they have a lot to say, but it just doesn't get to you because you're training. You're tired, and you have to concentrate on that. The second point is, like I said before, it's the awareness of injuries. I would say about 9 out of 10 runners that start get injured within the first 3 or 4 months. It's exactly there where the mileage increases and your cardiovascular condition improves, is where all of a sudden you get muscular injuries, bone or cartilage that's hurting. So we need to look what can we do to prevent all that. And the third one is I wanted to make the whole project a success. So you know the team spirit. I mean, the company doing this for you is just amazing. And I mean, there's not that many companies that do this, so I think this is something really special that has been given to you. And on that note, I think that they will be adding a really nice achievement to your personal achievement list, something that you will remember for a long time. I have one question for how many people. Raise your hands if it's your first marathon or half marathon. And okay. That's why you're here right now, no? Yes. Okay. Just for the organization, this talk will be videotaped. We will add captions to it, so it will be public on YouTube afterwards. So you can always dig into what I've talked about today to see, if you have any questions or any doubts. You can directly go onto the YouTube link and look into what I've said about running and starting running. The agenda, like I said, injuries, injury prevention, technique, running technique, breathing technique, but also mental techniques. So what can you do to stay there mentally? Okay? And I will talk a bit about nutrition and about hydration. So, getting started. Who hasn't started yet? Good. Good. For those that haven't started yet, I've talked to Hazel before, there might be a new group coming up. It's important to start now, as soon as possible, because we have 2.5 months to go, okay? And now we're coming into the critical phase. If you get injured, you might lose the race, okay? That's how crude it is. There are people who are running marathons, and 2 weeks before the marathon, all of a sudden a muscular injury, and it's done. So that's how careful we have to be. So getting started, you've probably noticed you're now 4 weeks down the line. You've probably already noticed an increase in energy. You notice an increase in endurance, and you become better. And the good thing about running is it's so easily accessible. You can do it anywhere, anytime. It's not expensive to start running. So it's a very great initiative to get you fit and, you know, to get you aware about your fitness. So you've probably already noticed some improvement. Now when you hit the 6-week line, that's when you will see that you really noticeably improve after about 6 weeks. And that's where you have to be even more careful about injuries, because that's where you get excited, you know, and you want to go faster, and you go uphill and downhill, and you see another one, and you say, I'm going to get it, you know. That's when you need to be a bit more careful, okay? That's why also we don't, we've planned the strength sessions, because the strength sessions balance the body so that it can protect itself more for all the impact that it's getting. If you have imbalances, if you have muscular imbalances or bone structures that are not rightly balanced, then that can provoke injuries. Okay, so what have you noticed? You have increased your overall fitness already. You probably increase your muscle tone. You feel your legs and you say, oh, the girls especially, you say, oh, you know, my legs are toning up, you know? And then, you know, your energy levels, you know, you get more energy. You don't have the dips anymore. You get fitter, so you have more energy. So the company is happy with that. Okay? Then there's a better endurance. So, you know, where normally you would go to bed at, or you stop working at 6:30, you now can go to 10, you know, and the company will be even happier, you know. You probably sleep better as well. On the days that you work out, you know, you probably, you know, you come home, you eat, or you eat a bit, you know, and then all of a sudden comes this peace. And, you know, that is something very good, because that aids the recovery process, because you sleep much better. Then is the mental thing. You feel better. You know, you're more positive. You know, so there's a lot of structural changes happening to your body and to your mind just by running. Okay? And the last one, you lose weight. Okay? So it's a really great way, you know, to get, you know, these away, you know, and, you know, this, and, you know, all of a sudden you start noticing a lot. Okay? Now, why do all these changes happen? Well, mostly, and many people are not aware of it, but it happens on a hormonal level. And that's why when you're sedentary, you know, your hormones get in disbalance, because the human body is made to move. It's made to be in action. Okay? And by sitting the whole day in front of a computer, doing, what was it again? Something like wages and something, you know? I mean, for the body, that has a degenerative effect. So it increases the aging process, it decreases or it improves posture, and, you know. So there are some things that you have to take into account. That with starting this program, all of a sudden there's a lot of hormonal changes. So let's take a couple of hormones out of there. Cortisol. Who knows what cortisol is? It's produced by the adrenals. Yeah? And cortisol is the hormone that is caused by stress. But not just stress of work, also physical stress. So after a workout, cortisol goes up. Okay? And it's because you're breaking the body down a bit. But then you give it rest to recover it again. Okay? So that's why being sedentary is not good, but over-exercising is not good either, because you're constantly breaking down the body. That's why you see some people going to the gym 7 times a week or 6 times a week. They just do it for other reasons that we come back to later. Okay? But allow rest, and the cortisol will dip again, and it will go up again, and it will dip again, and that's how you get better all the time. But the stress hormone cortisol is one of the most important hormones that gets reduced in general when you exercise regularly. Then there is leptin. Leptin is the fat loss hormone. It's a very interesting thing because it works together with insulin and with blood sugar, etc. And that's why when you start running, you also start losing weight, because the leptin levels are also balanced more. Okay, it's something that you don't control; it just happens. So that's a positive thing. It also controls appetite. So you know, even if you start running, your appetite might go up a bit. It might not go up as much as it should go up for the calories that you're burning in excess. So in netto, you're probably eating less than what you need. Okay. For the men, testosterone tends to go up. So, you know, sex drive, etc. You know, the Neanderthal comes out of us. And And then on the other side, what balances are other chemicals. They're like hormones, but they happen more in the brain. They're called the neurotransmitters. And there's dopamine, and there's serotonin, endorphins. The dopamine first is the one that activates the pleasure center in your head. So after that workout, you have this feeling like, I've done it. I did it, you know. You go look in the mirror and I did it, you know. And that's the dopamine working. Then the endorphins. They are a natural analgesic, so they're painkillers, you know. They also make you feel good, and the endorphins do the same. It's a wellness hormone, wellness chemical. Sorry. The serotonin affects much more the mood, so you get a better mood. Like I said before, you know, you're more positive. Okay. Now some other tips to getting started. It's always good to start with somebody that's better than you. Okay, that's why probably you contacted us. You know, say, what am I going to do? You know, because if we would have let you do this by your own, probably that half would have stopped already, and half of that would be injured, and you know, there would be only some continue. So that's why it's a very good thing to have somebody that knows and that is better to guide you in the process. Also, they're generally more experienced. They know some tips and tricks on you know, what to do, what to eat, how to, you know. In general, it's better for you. You have to be careful that you don't pick somebody who doesn't know, because some people think they know it all and they say, oh yeah, you come and run with me, you know, and then 2 weeks later you're in a hospital. You know, so be careful if you run with a buddy, you know, to pick somebody that's a bit better, but don't go for Paula Radcliffe or Haile Gebrselassie, you know. So be careful of that. Who runs with music? Who likes to run with music? Yeah, about half. Yeah. There's some advantages to it. There's some disadvantages to it. Some people like to run with music for the motivational part. Other people dislike it because it takes them out of their breathing meditation. Because you have a breathing pattern and you don't listen to your breathing. The first 2 miles are the worst, I wrote down, and it's especially when you start. You know, the first week, you come down from the office and you're like, oh, I want to go home. And then after about 2 miles, all of a sudden, these hormones and the endorphins and the chemicals kick in, and that's when the metabolism comes up and it is activated. And that's when you start to enjoy it. So, you know, always know that the first 2 miles are the hardest, and then after that it's gonna be easier. Also take into account that these first 2 miles you run at a bit more moderate pace, because you know, your metabolism isn't there yet. You just came out of the office, you know, oxygen deprivation, too much coffee, and you know, you're completely down, and then all of a sudden you need to start running. So the first 2 miles, just give yourself time to get into it. Then there is one more thing that, and that's going to get me also to the next point, is going to get me to the injury point, is don't stop running. Because what you've probably noticed, if you've missed a week or you missed 2 weeks, all of a sudden you start again and you're like, whoa, you know, and the rest are much better. Because that's the negative thing about cardiovascular condition, or negative thing, if you don't use it, you lose it immediately. If you go to the gym and you do weights and you know, you really train hard and you know, you leave it for a week or two, you normally go back to the gym and you're still more or less as strong as you were before, because the muscle mass increases much slower than your cardiovascular condition. So it also decreases much slower than your cardiovascular condition. Okay? So try not to stop. Even if you have a week where you have to travel for a company, you can be there, go on the weekend, do your plan, you know, take your shoes with you, run there. Okay? But don't stop. Keep the body going. And the last one is don't get injured. That's a very good tip, no? But don't get injured means, because if you're injured, you have to stop. And if you have to stop, you're not progressing, and you might even lose that race. So it's very important to stay away from injury. And that's going to be the next part of the talk. I've been in athletics for, when did I start? I think I was 20. I was a football player before. I played soccer on quite a high level. And then I got injured at one time with playing soccer, and I started to do athletics. I started mountain bike racing. I did a 24-hour race in mountain biking, marathons. You know, I've done a lot of athletic stuff. You know, the willpower is sometimes what gets us there. Is also what can hurt us. Right? So taming that inner lion, if it might be sleep, it might be puppy, you know, but taming that inner lion, you know, that gets excited all of a sudden, especially hitting that 6-week barrier, it's important to progress slowly. Okay? And starters are likely to get injured because there's an adaptation phase normally that you know could not be there. You just put your shoes on, you start running, and you're not adapting your body to the running. Okay, so important is always to progress slowly. So what are common injuries? Well, we have said before, muscular injuries, we have joint injuries or cartilage injuries, and then there's the bone injuries and structural injuries, you know, something like diabetes, you know, that's an illness which can cause a structural injury. Okay, so we have to be very careful with that. So the muscular issues, often the calves. Who's noting that they have hard calves or painful calves? 3, 4. Oh, you guys are really good. The calves are one of the muscle groups that are mostly used while running because they get all the impact of your body. When you run, it's 7 times the gravity than when you walk. It's 1 gravity, but the impact of running is 7 times the gravity. So all these muscles and tendons need time to get adapted to that. And you're now getting into a phase of running where all of a sudden, yes, the cardiovascular condition is peaking, but the muscle mass is lagging behind. Okay, so it's very important to keep progressing slowly. Because if you get injured in your calf, as that is your main driver for running, yeah, you're in trouble. I put down lose weight because running makes you lose weight, but if you start running with extra pounds, adding that extra pound, you have to multiply that by 7. Remember, gravity is 7. So every extra pound that you carry is an extra 3.5 pounds, 7 pounds onto that body. Okay, so be very careful with that. We go into nutrition later, so that's going to help you lose weight a bit as well. Then tone up. We've talked about the strength session. The strength session, we've done that to balance the muscle groups that are generally imbalanced. Because everything that we do in life, if you're right-handed, you tend to get things with your right hand. If your right leg is your driver, that will be the stronger leg. And that only creates imbalances in the body. Now what we do with the strength sessions is to create balance back again into the body, as much as we can, of course. It's one session a week, but you will be moving in a lot of different positions so that all the muscles in your body are used, and not just symmetrically, but also asymmetrically. Okay, so it's very important. Then the third thing about injuries is not to save money on footwear. Okay, because I mean, if you go and buy footwear and you don't have, you know, a specialist shop that looks at how you run and how you put your foot down, and, you know, then you definitely, you're 100% going to get an injury, especially when the mileage increases. Not right now, you're still safe, but if you haven't invested in the right footwear, you're going to be injured. I would say for a high extent of people will be injured. So I would really say, get your run checked at the store, bring your shoes with you, and say, does this work for me? Okay? I would say 95% of the girls will tend to put pressure on the inside. Anatomically, that's how it is, I'm sorry. Okay? But that means also that running, always putting that pressure on the inside of your sole, is going to create an imbalance. And doing that 7,000 times per run, times 7 times the gravity, maybe a couple of kilos overweight, or a couple of pounds, you get the notion. No, you have to be very, very cautious when it comes to the footwear. There is a running shop that I've recommended to Hazel. I think it's called Runner's World. They do run checks in the store, and they will come up with a proper footwear. Normally, a running shoe will go for about 700 kilometers, depending on the brand, depending on which type of shoe it is. If you are running on shoes that you bought 10 years ago, maybe they won't give you the cushioning and the support that you need. Okay, so don't cut down on the shoes. Now in the US there's this new movement. It's called barefoot running, and people really adapt to running barefoot. Okay, I don't see it happening here so much, but people are getting into it more and more. There is a brand that's called Vibram 5 Fingers, and that's actually a brand of shoes that works very well because you're much lower to the floor. They've taken out the high heel of the shoe and they brought the heel down. And by doing that, anatomically, you're automatically stretching the tendon and the muscle of the calf much more. So you will be running more ergonomically, correct, and therefore you will reduce injury. They look a bit funny, and it's a question of taste. But I mean, if you want to stay free of injury, you could try that. Okay, then the terrain. Try to run a lot on soft surfaces. So if you do your long run on the weekend, because we provide 2 sessions, but then the long run is what you're going to have to do in the weekend, which is going to increase 10 minutes every week, and that run is very important for you because that's going to give you the mileage, the total mileage of that week. Okay, and if you're going to do that on a hard surface with bad footwear, then that might also cause injury, and injury might cause you to stop running or might have you lose the race. And as I told you before, I don't want you to lose that race. It's very important everybody finishes, to me personally. So, when you go out, try to vary the terrain. Try to go into the hills, try the beach. There are several. There's the Carretera Las Aguas, which is a dirt road. Okay, don't go Sunday at 11 because you'll be overrun by bikes. Okay? I mean, you can go at 6, maybe a bit early on a Sunday, I don't know, but going at 8 on a Sunday is a good time because you normally only find the runners there. The running technique and the breathing technique are very important to prevent injuries, but I'll come to that later. So, is it possible to stay injury-free? Yes, it is. It is. If you progress slowly, if you do everything with the head, and because the emotion sometimes overtakes, and you start running, you start hitting it, and you get excited, there will be 3, 4, 5 people from this group that will get addicted to the running because it feels really good. Okay, and then all of a sudden you get better, and the cardiovascular condition, it gets much better, and you are able to run mile after mile after mile. But as soon as you stop with the strength classes with us, there is something that you will need to do to fill that gap. Because if you do only running, you're going to be injured. So you need some extra training on the side to balance those muscles all the time. Then rest, the rest time. There's also, like I said, there's the people that go to the gym or that go running 7 days a week. Okay, injury for sure. Okay, it's just a matter of time, and it's also not very good for your health. Because as we talked about cortisol. If you constantly put your body under stress and you don't give rest to recover it, cortisol is a catabolic hormone. It breaks muscle tissue down. Okay? So you need to come back into an anabolic state to build up and become stronger. So the rest is equally important as the running. Okay? So take that as a very important one. What happens when we do too much or we do too little? First of all, inflammation goes up, okay? Because normally in the Western world, our diets are not ideal. As we know, fast food, the food industry, they got us. So the very important thing is to keep inflammation down. And how do we do that? By resting and by eating properly. Okay, so that's very important. The immune system. If you overtrain, you will get sick because your immune system after training, like the cortisol, it gets a little dip and then it gets stronger. But if you do this properly on a long period of time, increasing progressively, you will notice that you will get much less sick, or many colds will be prevented by this. Okay, because you're out there, you're in the elements, you're helping your immune system to be strong. So you really as a company that I think is very interesting as well, you know, the sick days will go down. Now, the other thing is, as you start running, you probably don't know about what is a real injury and what is not. So there's a general rule of thumb that I wanted to give you that I think is very important to maybe to write it down, even though, because I don't know where we're going to publish the video. The general rule of thumb is that if you have some type of a pain and you start running and that pain disappears, and that has been just a muscular pain, there's nothing wrong. Okay, the pain disappears. Should the pain persist or get worse, you stop running, you take a little rest, because it will go away. Okay? Should you come to the stage where you say, hey, listen, this is staying there and it's not going away, and you want to go and see a physiotherapist, then go and see a physiotherapist that knows about running injuries. Don't just go to anybody of the mutua that knows, you know, about putting some electrodes on your leg, or, you know. No, go to somebody that knows about running injuries, because that person will be much more adequate in treating you and making you conscious about what to do with that injury. We all have our weak points in our body. For one person it's the calf, the other one is the glutes, the other one is the lower back, and it might at a certain point flare up. I would just say, you know, have good professionals on your side, you know, and don't cut back on that. Even if it's the first session that you go to that physiotherapist, but he will tell you what to do and what to look out for. Okay. Now, the other part would be nutrition. We'll talk about that later, and stress reduction. So, with stress reduction, I don't think with this group I should talk about train less. No, because you know you all work in an office. I don't think that is, you know, I'm in front of a group of athletes, but I mean the stress related to life, to pollution, because that causes stress in our body. We live in a big city. So, you know, try to reduce the levels of stress that you're subjected to, and you will get a much better outcome on the injury level. Okay, because stress is directly related to injury. Okay, another common injury is what we call within the runner, it's called the enemy below. Who knows what that is? The enemy below.
The ground?
No. It's an injury. Or what could be the enemy below? Now, most people come up with blisters, which is also below. So that's one. And but it's actually skin problems that occur with running, because you know there's a lot of impact, a lot of friction, and it's going to be a painful truth because you're still not having that type of mileage. But when your mileage increases, you're going to have cracked and bloody nipples. You're going to have painful feet.
That's not a question.
Inside the leg, you know, in the bum area, you know, it all rubs. Okay? So when the mileage increases, and you should start to notice that, use Vaseline and loads of it. Okay? They even designed special nipple plasters for runners. Okay? I prepared a guy for a marathon once, and after the marathon, his whole white shirt was covered in blood, just from his nipples. Yes. So, should you have problems with that, don't call me, just get some Vaseline. Finishing the injury part, what I would like to say is also to not worry too much about it. Listen to your body. Okay? Follow your intuition. If you say that something disappears while you're running, and then the general rule of thumb, you can keep going. If it doesn't disappear or persist, you have to have a rest. Okay? Now, what can I do to prevent injury? Ice. So if you feel like those calves are, there were some people with calf problems here. If you feel that your calves are flaring up or that they're stiff, and after the training, ice them. An ice bath or an ice massage for 2-3 minutes will give you big results. Okay, that's a preventive measure. as I said before, know your injury. You know, listen to your intuition. Slow progression, and try to run with proper footwear, even if you could with the bare foot or the 5 fingers. Okay? If you should get an injury, then there's one remedy that works very well. It's called Hormonal. It's a cream that contains arnica, and it helps the circulation. It brings the swelling down. It brings the inflammation down. I will put that in the video as well. I will put a caption there. It's called Hormonal. Then ice regularly, rest, and who knows about the RICE method? RICE, rest, ice, compress, and elevate. Okay, so should you have some type of an injury, that's the 4 steps. We'll put that in the video as well. Okay. Yes. Okay, so rice, not the food, which you should stay away of if you want to lose a bit of weight actually. But we'll come to that later. RICE stands for rest, ice, compress, and elevate. Okay, the third chapter today we'll talk about technique. And I think this is where people will be interested, I think. The injuries, as still that is not touching, we're not touching that subject, we're still in prevention mode. Okay? This is going to be more interesting for you, I think. So first we'll talk about the running technique, the posture. Okay? The most common mistake people make, and it's also induced by the posture itself, is that when you run, there should be a midline here, and those arms don't cross. Because when you run, you want to run forward. You don't want to run sideward. Okay? What does this movement do? It makes you lose energy to the side, and you want to run forward. Okay? So keep an imaginary line in the middle, and the hands don't cross that line. Okay? By that you will reduce rotation and you will lose energy loss in rotating instead of going forward. Always look about 7 to 10 meters down on the floor. So then you will have a right alignation of the body. Don't run like this because you might run into a truck, okay, or a cavalry. There are a lot of cavalries here, and I've run into them. Then, once you are interested in, once you have increased your cardiovascular condition, and you notice that you want to run faster, but you can't run faster, it could be that your body is too upright. Because if I am inclined forward, I already fall into that next step. Okay, but if I run very straight upward, okay, very erect, then I have a lot of pendulum to do with the legs, and my body doesn't do anything. But when I lean forward, you can already see then the pressure on the quadriceps is much more intense. You have not extended your psoas, okay, so you constantly have more power. So when you run, incline 5 to 10 degrees forward, and you'll be running much faster. Okay? Be careful because that will also imply much more calf. Okay, so there are some things to take into account there. But if you feel, some people have that naturally, no, because of their anatomy, they already run forward and they run much faster than the rest. It's just because they, anatomically they are in that position. If you run a long distance race, try to stay running comfortably on the long tracks. So the Sunday or the Saturday when you do the long run, okay, try to keep running comfortably. If you go too fast, you'll get out of breath, you go into a certain breathing technique that I will explain later. Slow down a bit, regain your breath, regain your energy, and go again. Okay, especially when you get into December, January, that area where we'll be on holiday, or I'll be, and most of you will be. That's actually the most important training time. So, if you do the long run there, make sure that, that you'll be doing there about 15K already, I think. Okay? So, when you go there and you get to 10K and you're out of breath, well then run the next 2 or 3K slowly, because your body at that point will be able to regain some of the energy. You will be as fit to be able to regain your energy while running. Something that you wouldn't be thinking of when you started probably. Then the shoulders and the torso. Many people that work in offices, who uses a computer every day? When we are in front of the computer, our posture normally already goes forward. Okay, so we have the arms forward, the anterior deltoid gets shortened, the posterior deltoids get lengthened, and you have a bad posture. The mid back also gets stretched, and then you're already like this. And this is not the running position. Okay, that was an upright forward running position, not like this. Okay. What you want also for your rib cage and for your diaphragm to be able to expand properly, you want those shoulders back. You want a long chest. You don't want a compressed chest, because where's that diaphragm going to go? Okay, so to be able to breathe better and breathe more profoundly and more and stronger, you will have to extend the chest. Okay, so one was the arms, and two is the chest and the head. Okay, so people that are staring on the floor, or at least in a short distance in front of them, those will be the people that will also have postural problems normally, because their bodies incline forward, their upper body. Okay, so important, get those shoulders back. Now there's a simple trick to do that. If I have a bad posture, my thumbs will be rotated inward, because this muscle, the bicep, the anterior deltoid, the pectoral muscle will be shortened. So an easy way to get better posture is to just extend and go back. Okay, and then you're natural again. Okay, so these are little tips and tricks, ergonometry, also when you're working, for example, when you're at the desk. Okay, but when you're running, so chest out, head up, and then you can breathe properly. Okay, and you will notice also that the breathing technique, which I will come back later, will be much easier. Because some say, hey, I'm getting out of breath very quickly. Well, if your diaphragm can only do this, how much oxygen are you going to get in? Okay? So keep extending. Okay? And if you see a colleague or a compañero, then say, hey, you're running, with your shoulders very. It actually happens when you get tired. That's when you start to reduce swelling. Okay? So have an eye on that, and also for your buddies. And your legs, of course, like I said before, especially for the girls, over time they will get toned, they will get slim, and all of a sudden you can wear other clothes, So they will get stronger, much stronger actually, and especially if you train the calf, okay, you girls won't get these calves, okay, they will get slimmer. Okay, so when you're wearing high heels, breathing technique. Now there are some breathing techniques, and I will go through to a couple of breathing techniques. There's a lot of breathing techniques, and we'll keep it simple for you today. First breathing technique is mouth in, mouth out. It's the easiest because you can get more air in. So when you do a race, you don't want to be nose in, nose out. That's for training. If you want to make training harder. Okay? Racing, most people do the mouth in, mouth out. There are some people that anatomically have their nostrils so close to the bone in there that even by breathing hard over the nose, we'll just close them. Okay? Okay, there's nobody here. Good. Now, if you're in preparation, then you want to maybe vary in the breathing techniques. Okay? Because if you want to get better, you must make it hard on the body. You must make it hard for your cardiovascular condition. But sometimes you want to make it hard without increasing the mileage too much, because then there might be the injury. So how can you make it harder? Is by breathing in through the nose, out to the mouth, or into the nose and out through the nose, because you'll get less oxygen. Okay, and your body will be, I want oxygen. No, I'm not going to give you any. Until it screams so hard, so you'll give in. Okay? Do give in. I don't want anybody to die. That won't work. Okay, then timing. I think that is a very interesting one, because We talked about music before, and why not to run with music? Well, music is a great motivator, especially in the first part. I find it very, very good to run with music. But once I get more tired, then I don't want the music anymore. Then it becomes like annoying actually, and I want to listen to my breathing. Now, the meditative breathing and running, what my experience is that once you get into a certain zone, you just run and you go 1 in, 1 out, or 2 in, 2 out, depending on which race you are running. For example, a 5K, I just run 1 in, 1 out. I don't go into 2 in, 2 out because it's a short race. I want to give everything and I want to feel like dying at the end. But that's not how you're going to do a half marathon, okay? And that's also not how you're going to finish a half marathon. No one, okay? So the breathing actually is an indication on how hard it is for you. So if you breathe 1 in and 1 out, you're like, that is tough pace, okay? Now, if you want to go and do meditative breathing, what I've come up with is that you do either 2 steps in, 2 steps out, or 3 steps in, 3 steps out. And yeah, I knew you were going to ask that. So, for example, when you do I'm going to do it here, so you can, if I'm in a zone of running and I want to run a certain pace, a marathon, I go like, you know? So it's 3 steps in, out. You know? That's how I go into a flow. And by running like that, or 2 in, 2 out, everybody gets their own, you know, meditative state. But that's how I really go into a zone and run for miles and miles and miles, breathing like that. Okay? And even if you want to go fast, that's also a way of breathing. So when you do the meditative breathing, the music really doesn't help. You want to focus on your breathing. If you just run for fun and you just want to finish that race, which is okay, you just put music on and you just go, you know. But for anyone who wants to you know, make a better personal best or have a certain time objective, then vary around with these breathing techniques. Okay, so in training, you can do 1 in, 1 out, you can do nose in, nose out, you can vary to make it harder, okay? But when you're running that race, and a half marathon, it's 21K, you know, it's still quite a distance. Yeah. So you do want to finish that comfortably and with a nice technique, you will get much better there. Okay. Also, if you do this breathing technique, it will become your technique, and it will get you more and more oxygen into your system. Because sometimes people are not listening to their breathing. When they're listening to music, they're not listening to their breathing, and maybe they're depriving their body from the precious oxygen they need in that race. Okay. We'll talk about that more in the race preparation talk. That will be the 3rd talk that we'll be doing. Okay. Then, mental techniques. Everybody will have their own, or not. So, when it comes to mental techniques, I mean, people are different, and you know, one person is better at other things than another. What helps a lot is to watch a motivational video before you go and do your run. You know, there's some really good ones on YouTube. You know, to just get the energy. The music will get you going. You see people breathing, running, sweating, feeling good. Okay. Just before you go out on that run, on that long run on a Sunday morning after Christmas, you know, where you didn't drink alcohol and didn't have any carbs and no postres. Right? And it's going to be important, you know, to get some motivation in. So look at YouTube, watch YouTube, and there's some really great motivational videos. You know, just a short video, get you going, and then put your shoes on and out you go. Okay? And then find a partner or a buddy that is, you know, just a bit better, just a bit fitter, you know, and to see if they want to join you on that long run. I mean, you're all colleagues, and you know, I can imagine that after 5 days a week in the office plus 2 hours training, you want to have, you know, no colleagues on the weekend. But maybe for the long run, and it's only a short period of time, you can get, you know, a friend or a colleague to run with you. Okay? Oh no, those faces. Okay, forget about it. Then, these are some really interesting mental techniques as well that I've used. When you run, and you normally run a loop, run faster on the way back. Okay? Because for a couple of reasons. For a couple of reasons. First of all, you start very fast. You start too fast. And when you're not in that metabolism yet of you know, your body knowing how to use the energy most efficiently, it's going to be important that you're going to start a bit slower and run faster on the way back. Your body is more adapted to it, you're warmed up completely, and you can really give it a go. So the chance of getting injured is also less. Okay? I don't mean this for the long run though. I mean this if you do like a short recovery run or you do a short run, try to do a circular one and come back faster on the way back. Okay? On the long runs, I would just try to hit the same pace every minute. If you run with the watch, try to always hit the same pace. It's very difficult, but it's a very interesting way of training yourself. Write up the questions down, and we'll talk about them later. Okay. Then always run faster uphill. Why? Because all the others don't want to run faster uphill. So if you really want to have a good marking, or you want to, you know, you're running a race. I mean, I'm talking from competition point of view as well. But you want to knock him down on that hill, because if he sees you going or she sees you going on that hill, clack, mentally broken down. Okay? Yeah? So as soon as that hill is there, you're gonna go uphill faster. There's another advantage of going uphill faster, which is actually that when you go uphill, it's ergonomically more safe to run uphill, because your body is constantly in tension. When you run downhill, you have to extend, and so the whole pressure comes onto your knee, onto your hip, and the joint suffers a lot more. But when you're running uphill, it's like going up the stairs. It's constantly muscular. Okay? So that's a very nice one. No? Now you're going to run uphill faster. Then find a hill. Okay? And we have a lot of them here. Okay? But if you would find a hill, you know, make sure it's a hill and not a bump in the road. So you must be able to run uphill for more than 5 minutes in a row. Otherwise it's a bump in the road. Run as fast as you can, and then walk down again. And then run again as fast as you can, walk down. That's a very good series training or interval training. Okay, if you want to do something extra. Then, how to stay motivated? Well, I mean, I have to say that it's such a great thing that a company comes forward with an initiative like this, because they take away that starting line. They take all that away. They just say, hey, we're going to do this. Okay? We're trainers, we're going to have fun, and, we're going to sweat, and we're going to feel better. Okay? So they already took one big chunk of, the motivational part. It's getting started. Okay? But in the end, it's also you who did it, because you decided to sign up in the end. Set goals. I mean, we've set a goal now. We set a half marathon, which is actually quite a goal for many people that start running. Once you've done the race, and once you've seen what this brings into your life and how it changes everything, on a fitness level, on an emotional or on a mental level, well, try to set more goals. You now have a goal, and I know you're with this is a short-term goal. Try to set a long-term one as well.